Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, and you know exactly what that means. We have another mock draft on the channel today. Now, before we get into the draft, I know I look a little different. Please try to keep your attention to the draft, gentlemen. But we're going to do another mock draft. Same thing we do every Monday. You guys have been liking the series. If you guys haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I have a playlist going of all of these mock drafts. I'm going to continue to upgrade them each week. But let's not get into any more theatrics. Let's go ahead and start the draft. I'm not even going to bother with this one. It's still Caleb Williams. I still expect Justin Fields to be traded in the near future. I really don't know what I was thinking giving Jaden Daniels to the Commanders the other day. I guess I was trying to like switch it up, do something funny, but I just don't see a world where they wouldn't want Drake May. Kingsbury probably doesn't want to model his running game after Jaden Daniels. He's a little bit more slender, so I can't imagine that. 3 is, I think, where the draft gets interesting. Now, me personally, I probably wouldn't take Jaden Daniels 3rd overall, but I understand that you really can't go without a quarterback. New coach probably wants to take his guy. So as much as I would probably petition to take Marvin Harrison if I was in that Patriots front office group, I do think that they will end up going with Jaden Daniels, which then means the Arizona Cardinals get the best reality possible and they take Marvin Harrison. Okay, so now the draft gets interesting at pick number 5. Now, last week I had people both praise me and shit on me for taking Brock Bowers, and I really haven't convinced myself otherwise. I think Brock Bowers is probably still the correct move for the Chargers here at pick number 5. I guess they could entertain the idea of Malik Neighbors, even though they went receiver the first round last year. They could entertain, Joe Alt, maybe move him to right tackle, but again, tackle's not a huge area of concern for the Chargers. Maybe you trade back. I do think that they are a trade back candidate. But if they stick and pick, I still believe that it's Brock Bowers. He makes the most sense. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman love tight ends. I think he's a weapon. They don't have a valuable tight end. They have a reliable tight end on that roster. He can help run block as well. They're going to want to promote the running game. Brock Bowers, to me, makes a lot of sense to pick 5. For those of you saying that he's not worth the 5th overall pick, I would disagree. I think that he's probably the best tight end prospect ever. And I know we said that about Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts' coaching has failed him. And Brock Bowers is a better run blocker. So I think he has those 2 things working for him. Now to pick 6, which is ironic because it's the Giants and their quarterback sucks. Pick 6, I will give the Giants here Malik Neighbors. Now, I understand that Joe Alt or Olufashano would be tempting, but again, you're kind of running into the same problem that the Chargers have, where you have a really good left tackle. Andrew Thomas is a damn good left tackle, so you'd be moving a guy to right tackle, and I guess there would be some instability there whether or not he would be a phenomenal right tackle as well. I think he would, but the Giants are desperate for receivers. Like, they do not have any weapons, and they need to make, I guess, an analysis on their quarterback situation here, and they just have nobody to do that, right? That was the whole logic with the Bears going to get DJ Moore last year. It's like, hey, we want to make our decision on Justin Fields. I know that the Giants have already paid Daniel Jones, but I think a lot of people in that building are skeptical about him. Give him Malik Neighbors. Give him a legit weapon, because Saquon's probably going to leave as well, and see what he can do with a legit number 1 wide receiver. Next, for the Tennessee Titans. Now, I've gone back and forth about what I think the Titans were going to do. Peter Skoronski was their pick last year, so that made me think, hey, maybe go Joe Alt, maybe go Olufashanu. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why would they do that when they desperately need wide receivers? Like, desperately. And they're going to probably run it back with Will Levis next year, give him another shot to prove that he could be the guy. Why not go get a guy like a Rome Odunze? To me, that just seems counterproductive if you're going to ignore your biggest need and a guy who's a really good talent at the position at pick 7. Doesn't make a lot of sense to avoid Rome Odunze. I do think that he goes with pick 7. Now, pick 8 is interesting because Joe Alt is falling probably farther than he should at this point. But again, the Falcons don't really need tackle. They don't really need offensive tackle. This is a position where I could see some team trading up with the Falcons. I think they're a trade down candidate as well. But I can't really give them Joe Alt because, again, not a huge need. I do think they need edge rushers. And if you ask me honestly who the top edge rusher is in this class, I think it's Jared Verse. If you ask probably the NFL board right now, it's probably Latu or Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner, to me, would probably have a little bit higher of an edge. Higher of an edge to him. just because, the Alabama factor. He's probably a better athlete naturally. He probably has a higher ceiling than Latu. So I think he would be the pick there at 8 and be the first defensive player off the board. Now, this is an instance for the Bears where I understand that left tackle is not an immediate need for him. And I understand that, right tackle is going to be Darnell Wright. But listen, man, when you have an opportunity to take Joe Alt and you don't have like an A to A plus left tackle, I think you do it. I think you do it. Joe Alt is just that kind of guy. All of a sudden, you'd be surrounding Caleb Williams with two really good exterior protectors. Again, is this probably plan A for the Bears? No. But if Joe Alt falls to pick 9, I just don't see how he gets outside the top 10. I think the Bears would be more than happy taking him top 9, which then would probably bump Braxton Jones inside the guard, I would imagine. Okay, the Jets here at 10, they were probably wishing that Joe Alt fell another pick, but I think they're more than fine taking Olu Fashanu. I'm very, very confident that they're going to go offensive tackle here. I think that their season just erupted, 10 seconds in? And I get erupting 10 seconds in. I understand that pain because of the lack of protection that Aaron Rodgers had. I think that their main priority is to protect Aaron Rodgers. That is the only thing they're thinking of right now. Pick number 11 for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, again, a lot of this depends on, do they still have Kirk Cousins? Because if they don't, I think that this is an opportunity for them to either stick and pick a quarterback or trade up and try to get Jaden Daniels. If they do, I would probably think that they go either defensive line or corner here. Byron Murphy is interesting. I think maybe it's a little high. Cooper DeJean is a guy that I could see going pick 11, and I will go ahead and throw the Vikings to Cooper DeJean right here. I don't know. There's something about Cooper DeJean and Brian Flores' like man-heavy, blitz-heavy system that I think could work really, really well. And again, if you're sitting at 11 and you've retained Kirk Cousins, you're probably going BPA because this was a team that won 13 games a couple of years ago. You definitely want to make that defense better, I think, and I think Cooper DeJean would be a great guy to do that. I don't know. There's just something about Cooper DeJean being in that Brian Flores cover 0 blitz heavy scheme that I think is really enticing. You get a guy who's a really good athlete, great playmaker. And again, if you're the Vikings and you've retained Kirk Cousins, you probably go BPA. You probably go best player available. And I think they could definitely make some improvements on that defensive side of the ball. I don't necessarily know if Cooper DeJean is corner 1, but he might fit what the Vikings want to do the best, in my opinion. Pick number 12 for the Denver Broncos. I am seeing a lot of people a lot smarter than me mock J.J. McCarthy to the Broncos. So I'm going to copy that. I think that Sean Payton is a guy who thinks he can get the most out of J.J. McCarthy. And I don't say that condescendingly. I think that Sean Payton is a coach who sees J.J. McCarthy and sees the potential that he has and says, I can get the most out of him. I want him on this football team. The Broncos are in a bad quarterback spot because they don't have a premium pick. They don't have a quarterback after they release Russell Wilson, to be honest with you. So they're kind of in a weird spot here. I think that if Sean Payton likes J.J. McCarthy, they probably can take him at pick number 12. 13 for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I am a type of guy who I believe in themes, right? A lot of teams have a theme in which they draft. The Raiders theme, they always draft freaks. And that's said in the most appropriate way possible. They draft players who are faster, stronger, longer arms. In this case, for Nate Wiggins, who I'm going to have the Raiders taking, they draft guys that are just freak athletes, right? Nate Wiggins is really long, really long arms, and fast. And I think that this is a position of need for the Raiders corner. Antonio Pierce is a defensive guy. This makes sense. And again, the Raiders organization, they just always like drafting these like unicorn type players. I think Nate Wiggins is a good fit for the Raiders here at number 13. For number 14, for the New Orleans Saints, Talisi Fuaga is a guy that I think they can go with. Ryan Ramczyk is getting older. How many productive years does he have left? Trevor Penning was not a very good pick for the Saints. I could have told them that. I hated him coming out of the draft. Tackle is a need for them, especially to protect their huge financial investment into Derek Carr. They're pretty strapped for cash. Don't get me wrong. They probably have to go BPA, and one of the best players available just happens to be a tackle. So good for them. Indianapolis Colts at pick 15. Now, I am tempted to take receiver here, and if one of the big dogs fall, I think a receiver would be in play. However, with none of like the main guys, who's the best receiver left? Brian Thomas. Yeah, I probably wouldn't take Brian Thomas top 15. So then I think it becomes, okay, we need to take defensive players because if you look at their roster, their defense is not very good. There's a lot of optimism regarding the offense with AR, with Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully they get Michael Pittman back. But the defense is a big old question mark. I think one area that they would want to address is the defensive line, and I think they would also want to address the defensive backfield. You got two guys sitting right here, Byron Murphy and Quinion Mitchell, who I think both could be really, really good players here. Both are good values at pick 15. I will go ahead and give the Colts Quinion Mitchell for now, just because they do have to force Buckner, and I believe Grover Stewart at defensive tackle. I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure he's still on the team. But they have decent interior defensive line for right now. Corners, I think, a bigger area of concern. Kenny Moore is probably their best corner, and he's getting older. So I'll go ahead and gift them Quinion Mitchell at pick 15. I think he's a huge riser ever since the Senior Bowl, and I think he's going to be a really good corner. Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to stick with my previous pick. That's a lie. I'm not going to. I think what they're going to do, they're going to go Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. Listen, Ryan Grubb coming in, in fact, a whole new coaching staff coming in. I don't think they have a lot of loyalty to a lot of these players, right? And I think what they're going to want to do is they're going to recognize the needs and the big holes in this roster very quickly. Very quickly. One of those being center. Now, I know Evan Brown's a free agent, so you could always say, oh, we'll bring back Evan Brown. I don't think this is an instance where bringing Evan Brown back makes a whole lot of sense unless it's very team-friendly and unless, come April, you really don't think that you're going to get Jackson Powers Johnson. At 16, he should be on the board. I don't see a lot of teams that would really take him before the Seahawks, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think 16 would probably be the earliest he goes. And again, I think that that's just a good fit with Seattle. I think he's a really quality center. This would make up for them not drafting Creed Humphrey like I was begging them to a couple of years ago, or like 3 years ago, I guess, at this point. And he's a big position of need for them, and I think he's going to be really good. Keep him on the West Coast. Number 17, the Jaguars. Now, I think they go corner here. I've kind of said that the whole way. I think they need to improve on the defensive side of the ball. I know the offense was underwhelming last year, but I don't know if personnel-wise you can make a whole lot of big changes. I think their two biggest needs this offseason are going to be to keep Josh Allen and to improve their defensive backfield. I have them doing that right here with Terrion Arnold. Number 18, the Cincinnati Bengals. Their main priority, again, you just got to keep protecting Joe Burrow. Two of his last 4 seasons have ended with season-ending injuries. When he's on the field, when he's playing, they are a contender in the AFC. You got to keep him upright. J.C. Latham is, I think, the best tackle available. He's going to be a position of need for the Bengals after the La'el Collins thing really didn't work out. He is going to be an excellent pick at 18 for them. Now, pick 19, admittedly, to me is really hard to kind of pinpoint. I have no idea what the Rams are going to do. They could, plan for the future, maybe take a Bo Nix, maybe take a whoever, and sit him for a few years, kind of do like the Jordan Love method. They could go with defensive line to help out Aaron Donald. They could go with edge rusher, corner, whatever. I personally think that if they're looking at the board right here, they're going to probably want to go with edge rusher. I think Jared Verse is an excellent pick, excellent value at pick 19. And they are a team, despite their roster not being very good, they were very successful last year, right? They lost a playoff game by a point. They were a lot better than people expected them to be after a year of being really, really bad. So I think that they'll actually want to plan for the future, plan for the present, not so much the future. I think that's where Jared Verse comes in. He helps you get better immediately. Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they do need DBs as well. This is a spot where I can see a Kool-Aid McKinstry going to pair up with Joey Porter. Now, I don't know where the love has been lost for Kool-Aid McKinstry. It seems like a lot of guys have really taken him off their list of top corners in this draft. I'm an Alabama fan. I've loved Kool-Aid McKinstry. I personally, I think he's better than Terrion Arnold, but a lot of people have Terrion Arnold ahead of him, so I can't just ignore their consensus ranking. I think that he's really damn good, and he would help the Steelers' defense get a lot better. And like you said, like I said, Mike Tomlin, defensive guy, it kind of makes sense. They draft defense a lot. For the Miami Dolphins, now all of a sudden, they're in a position where I think they need corner as well. They just released Xavier Howard this past week. They're in a lot of cap trouble. Now, you have to understand, I'm projecting a little bit. Like I do to all my friends when I talk about my problems, I'm projecting, right? The Dolphins are in a bad cap situation. They've already lost Xavier Howard. Would not be surprised if they lost Christian Wilkins. So you're thinking corner, maybe Enos Rackshaw Jr., which isn't a bad pick at pick 21. But honestly, Byron Murphy's still on the board there. And if they're in such a squeeze for cash that they're unable to get Christian Wilkins back, I could see Byron Murphy being an excellent addition to the Miami Dolphins team in replacement of Christian Wilkins. At pick 22, listen, again, I do think that corner is definitely in play here. There's a lot of teams in kind of these late teens, early 20s that need corners. Enos Ragshaw, to me, is the pick for the Philadelphia Eagles here. Darius Slay is your best corner, and he's, 32? James Bradbury was unplayable last year. He was awful. And if you want to gain back any legitimacy that you had, in 2022, you got to get that defense right. That was fucking embarrassing down the stretch. Houston Texans, via the Cleveland Browns, are going to be on the board here. Now, honestly, I've had them taking Brian Thomas in the past, which makes sense because they need, I think, a third receiver badly. But Latu is on the board here. And Jonathan Greenard is a free agent. I honestly think that him and Will Anderson would be fucking lethal together on opposite sides of the field. That would be just amazing. I would love that pairing. I think D'Amico Ryans, a defensive coach, would love that pairing. 23 is a really good value, I think, for Latu, and I think the Texans would pounce on that opportunity. Dallas Cowboys. This is another team where it's kind of hard to pinpoint what they're going to do. Truthfully, they could go receiver because, Brandon Cook's contract is up. Obviously, CD is the wide receiver one, going to be there for a long time. Brian Thomas, to me, makes sense here, just because you have not a lot of security outside of CeeDee Lamb. Like I said, Brandon Cook's contract is coming up. Michael Gallup has been disappointing. I think Brian Thomas would be yet another weapon for Dak Prescott. Again, pick 24 is a little bit confusing to me, to be honest. Pick 25, to me, this is a perfect fit. I'm not confused by this at all. Listen, the Packers need safeties badly. I would argue it's their biggest need. Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. People might be saying it's a bit rich to take him at 25. I think sometimes you got to throw caution to the wind and take a really good player at a position of need for you. Is he maybe a top 25 player in this draft? Maybe not. But if you're the Packers, I think you were so impressed with some of your skill guys last year with Jordan Love that you kind of, like I said, throw caution to the wind, just take Tyler Nubin and fill a big need. Number 26, Tampa. This is hard too because they have so many free agents. Antonio Winfield, Levante David, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. Those are huge, huge names on the free agent market for them. And do I think they bring some of them back? Absolutely. But who? Do they bring back Winfield and Baker? Do they bring back Mike Evans and Baker? Do they bring back, Winfield and David and Mike Evans? It's so hard to pinpoint here. So I'm going to stick with the fact that they probably bring back Antonio Winfield and probably bring back Baker Mayfield. I think they might lose Mike Evans. So now you could say, well, they'll take Ladd McConkey, they'll take a Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman actually would make a lot of sense for them, to be honest with you, just given his size. But maybe, you say maybe he's not a top 26 pick. Okay, I would kind of disagree with that. They do need help on their interior as well. One thing I will give them, just because they do need help with their interior defensive line, is Graham Barton. That's a guy who is going to bump either to play guard or center. Ryan Jensen has recently retired for the Buccaneers, unfortunately. Their long-tenured center who's been phenomenal. I think that he'll fill a big void there for whoever the next quarterback is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whether that be Baker or somebody else. Arizona, they still need receivers. They still need offensive linemen. They still need defensive linemen, linebackers, corners. I get that, right? So Troy Franklin is tempting. I won't do it because they did take Marvin Harrison in this mock. Jerzon Newton is a guy that I think would fit in Arizona very nicely, would fill that kind of nose tackle role, that zero tech, if you will. He would almost be like, you got to remember, Jonathan Gannon, he's a defensive coordinator from the Phillies, right? Maybe be like their version of Fletcher Cox. I doubt he's that good because Fletcher Cox is like a borderline Hall of Famer. I doubt he's that good. But I think Jonathan Gannon, out of everybody, knows the importance of a really good defensive tackle. And maybe he could be their anchor on defense for several years because they really don't have a lot of guys on defense, unfortunately. So the rest aside for a second. But I think that's a good pick for Arizona. Pick 28, Buffalo Bills. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. I think they need receivers. Dalton Kincaid was a nice pick, but he's a tight end. There's only so much he could do. At receiver, though, I do think that they'll go ahead and go with Troy Franklin. Fast. I mean, he's a field stretcher. He's a big playmaker. It seemed like maybe Stephon Diggs lost a step last year, especially those last, 8 to 10 games. Gabe Davis is a free agent. You can't rely on Khalif Raymond, I don't think, to get consistent wide receiver 1 reps. Troy Franklin is, I think, a game changer. He'll make a lot of big plays. And I just want to imagine, close my eyes and imagine the moon balls that Josh Allen is going to throw him. It just, it'll feed families. Pick 29 for the Detroit Lions. Again, I think they need to go defensive back badly. But unfortunately, a lot of the good ones have already been taken. Peyton Wilson, to me, is a guy who is just, he's not good enough to go in the first round. You just took Jack Campbell. I will say, though, a guy that I do like for Detroit right here is Zach Frazier. Jonah Jackson is a free agent, and they have prided themselves on having a really, really dominant offensive line. Jonah Jackson is a big yet underappreciated part of that. He's supposedly going to go get a monster deal in free agency. So Zach Frazier is a guy that I think you could play at guard as well. Frank Ragnow even got banged up a little bit last year, so maybe if he gets hurt, you could slide him there. But I think that's a good move for Detroit. They either go that if one of the corners falls, I think they go with the corner. But the way the board's falling like this, I just don't see it. For the Baltimore Ravens, now I am very, very confident that they either go with receiver or they go with offensive tackle. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at the available players here. Troy Fatnew is fine. I don't have an issue with him. Tyler Guyton is fine as well. I have no issue with him. But Keon Coleman, to me, is a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Baltimore Ravens. Such a drastic receiver stylistically from what Zay Flowers is. And listen, they hit on Zay Flowers last year. There's no disputing that. Zay Flowers is that guy. But outside of Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham's a free agent. Right, Rashad Bateman has not proven that he is, a viable threat in the NFL. Nelson Aguilar, right, and then you got Isaiah Likely, who, yes, has been really good, but he's a backup tight end up until this point. So I don't want to run the offense through Isaiah Likely just yet. Keon Coleman, I think, would bring another really good element to this offense. Would give Lamar 2 really good, certifiable top targets. And I think he would be an excellent fit in Baltimore. Now, let's go to the 49ers. I think they need offensive linemen. Pretty much every offensive lineman outside of Trent Williams. Troy Fatnew makes a lot of sense for them. Could either play right tackle, could play like right guard, left guard, whatever. He could play the other 4 spots, or the other 3 spots. I won't put him at center, that are not vacated by Trent Williams. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, I do think that they will go with receiver as well. To me, my personal favorite receiver still on the board would be A.D. Mitchell. Everybody who watched the Chiefs knows they need receivers badly and that Mahomes was doing an absolute carry job. So this is my mock draft. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Appreciate you guys watching the video. I will catch you in the next video.